There's no wisdom on the left. There are a
You
lot
can't
of...
say that.
I can say that.
You seriously think there's no wisdom on the left?
I know it. I don't say it. I
How is
know
that-
it. I lived it. I went to Columbia. My professors were brilliant and had almost no wisdom.
So years ago, I used to have a radio show in Glendale with Salem Radio called Saving America. And I would go into the building and there was always this man they would talk about, Dennis Prager, that we all in LA had heard for many, many years. And you had your own show on the other side. I have my small little show here getting started. And now from there, I mean, if you go online and you type in Prager University, it's one of the fastest growing YouTube channels all over the world. They're getting 2,500 to 4,000 subscribers per day. And the message is specifically around capitalism. So today, we're going to talk a little bit of capitalism with the one and only Dennis Prager.
Great to be with you.
Good to be with you. Thank you for welcoming us in your house.
By
here.
the way, let me explain.
Yes.
Since it's my house, so we got the dog didn't want to move and the cigar didn't want to move. So that's why they're both there.
That makes a lot of sense.
Just one. In
No, that
fact,
makes a
not
lot
the
of sense.
dog. The dogs.
3 of them. Now, Snoopy went in the other room, so we're going to have to,
Right.
until Snoopy decides to come in here. So, Dennis, today I would like to talk about 3 different items, okay? One of them will be how we form our opinions. Another one will be capitalism. And then one of them will, if we got time, we'll get into Hitchens. I know you spent some time with Hitchens, and to me, he's one of the most fascinating characters out there. And I'd be curious to know what your take will be on that. I grew up in a family where my mother's side, they all believed in communism. And my dad's side, they believed in imperialism. And I grew up completely confused. So on one side, they believed rich people were greedy. On the other side, they believed poor people were lazy. And I'm right in the middle. So it was the greatest debate of my life was mom and dad debating. So
How was their marriage otherwise?
well, you know, they got a divorce twice. You know, they got a divorce 2 years into it and 20 years into it. Yeah, that.
People should marry people with whom they share values.
You know, it's amazing. I got into a conversation with one of my friends, and he said, common faith is more important than common political beliefs. And I said, I think economical beliefs is more important than...
It's an odd statement because what if faith translates itself into real life, or it's pointless? If your religion, I'm a deeply religious man. I have been teaching the first 5 books of the Bible for 40 years. And the fruit of it is the first volume, the book of Exodus, the second book. My commentary and explanation is coming out. It's called The Rational Bible. So that gives you an idea of how hard I work on these matters. But the point that I wanted to say to you is, religion has to have values. It can't just be I believe in God, or I believe in Jesus, or I believe in the Torah, or I believe in the Quran. So therefore what? My next question is, see, if I know somebody believes in something, I still don't know anything about their values. I only know that they believe. So my point is, people should marry with common values. That's the most important, even more than common faith. Because you can have people of 2 different religions who have the same values, and people of the exact same religion who agree on nothing.
I'm 100% with you.
Right, that's all I want to say.
So now let's go into the first topic, since you're going into that. So years ago, we were at Wayne Hughes' house, you know, the son of, I believe, what is it, Public Storage. At that time, I think he was a $3.8 billion guy. And we were in Malibu. And you were up there speaking, and you said the most interesting thing. I was sitting right in the front, and you said the difference between liberals and conservatives. You said 5 different things. They're trying to make good and evil be the same, men and women be the same, animal and human beings. All the stuff you remember
that? That's impressive.
I vividly remember that. So you said that, and I'm sitting there saying, I'm going back and I'm doing research. I'm like, what is this? What is he talking about? Because right around that time, my political beliefs as a capitalist was majorly influenced by George Will back in March of '09.
Right.
And you know George Will. And so from there I got into the
He's
Reagan.
made a PragerU video, a few of them.
Yes, he has. That's right. Yes, he has. And so let's go to that. Dennis, you obviously, you look at this room, you got so many books in here. This could be a local library in La Cañada, and people could come and sign out books and start a small side business.
They could.
To fund the
That's
YouTube
right.
channel. But, you know, if you go back and we look at Dennis at 14 years old, 16 years old, 18 years old, 25 years old, 35 years old, 45 years old, if we look at Dennis, how did Dennis Prager form his opinions to where you are today, and who influenced it?
This will sound boring, except for one item. I have the exact same value system as in high school. And in high school, I wrote, and I still have the diary, the physical diary. I wish I kept the diary the rest of my life, but I didn't. I know what I want to do with my life. I want to influence people to the good. That's all I've ever been interested in. There's so much cruelty and evil on earth, and I want people to be good, but I know that we don't start out good. Human nature isn't good. It's not evil, but it's not good. So how do you make people good, or even just better? That's been my life's work. The one area that I have changed was done by Ronald Reagan. When Ronald Reagan said, government is not the solution, it's the problem. And I realized, oh my God, is that true? Now, nobody denies government has to do some good. It has to put out your fires. It has to hire police. It has to have armed forces. There has to be some degree of regulation. We all acknowledge that. But why would anybody trust a lot of power in people's hands? The United States was founded, and only the United States, on the belief that limited government is a moral value. Without limited government, America is just like every other place. Every other. Number two, having been preoccupied with evil, I realized Reagan's comment was right in another way. All the genocides of the 20th century, and there were more genocides in the 20th century than all centuries before that put together, all of them were caused by big government. And nobody talks about that. People say all the time, oh, religion has killed, people have killed more people in the name of God. People have killed more people in the name of secular government than in all the religions. Forget it. There's no comparison. Communism and Nazism killed more people than Christianity by a factor, and I'm not Christian, I'm Jewish, by a factor of 1,000. The whole Spanish Inquisition killed about 6,000 people in 300 years. And it was an evil thing, but 6,000 in 300 years?
Versus 20 million?
Versus 20 million, that's the minimum figure for Stalin. 60 million is the minimal figure for Mao. A third of the Cambodians, 4 million Ukrainians by Stalin in the early 30s in the forced famine. He simply took people's food away. I mean, and it goes on. And of course, the Nazis and the 6 million Jews. So all of them were secular governments. So we'll put the secular aside. That's just to answer the challenge against religion. But it's critical to note that it's big government. You can't slaughter a lot of people without big government. With one exception, the Hutus and Tutsis. That was the one exception.
But let's go back to the question. There's a part of it that I have a hard time believing. You said there's only one thing that for you wanted to do good, and you wanted to make people better,
right, yes,
to become better. Right. Fair enough, right. But you weren't born this way.
I was.
There's no way. So you're telling me
that is my nature, but it is also you're 100%
no,
right.
I'm not saying
it's
that.
It's 50% environment.
Look, you also made a video that you said you believe kids are born bad, and we have to make them good.
I never said bad. Yeah.
Basically, we have to make you don't teach a kid manners, respect,
you're 100%
say please, say all this stuff.
It is 50% environment. I was raised with a great value system.
That's what I want to know. So
that is correct.
Who was that? Maybe your parents?
Well, my parents definitely were a factor. There's no question. They talked about ethics a great deal. But I was raised in a religious home, went to religious school, and I took the stuff seriously. When it says, love your neighbor as yourself, I am God, and nobody adds the I am God, they don't remember it's even in the sentence. It's God who says, love your neighbor as yourself, not man, not Moses. It's God, ultimately. And in other words, so God wants me to be good. Woo. I'll give you an example. I believe the 10 Commandments are from God. One of them is honor your father and mother. Like almost everybody, I had a difficult time with my parents when I was younger. But I never, ever disrespected my parents. I never ignored them. The moment I left their house at the age of 20 or 21, from then till the day they died at 96 and 90 respectively, I called them every week of my life, anywhere I was on earth. I honored my parents because I believe God commanded honor your parents. People who think we can have a great world without God are naive.
Okay, again, let's go back to that. So here's my question for you now. I'm curious. Because what I'm trying to solve, what I'm trying to figure out is the following, and maybe I'm curious to know where you're gonna go with this. Dennis Prager is born in a family where his mom and dad are Bill and Hillary Clinton. Okay, it's you who you are, but you're born in that family. Would Dennis today be a very strong liberal and promoting what you're promoting on MSNBC with Rachel Maddow? Or would you still be the Dennis Prager today saying, I'm going to be this conservative, libertarian, Republican, whatever maybe, and I'm going to drive these initiatives?
It would be the latter, and I know why.
Really?
Yes.
You really believe that?
There's no doubt in my mind, and I'll tell you why. I believe in what I believe because it's moral and because it's common sense. If liberalism or leftism made common sense, then I would be a liberal or a leftist. And they're not the same, by the way. I spent a great deal of time explaining to liberals that they should fear and fight the left just as much as the right does. And Alan Dershowitz agrees. Alan Dershowitz, prominent Harvard professor of law, has said to me on film just a few weeks ago in his home, I am a liberal and the left is my enemy much more than the right.
Very few are going to say that.
Very few, because they don't have the guts to say it.
But so
liberals are not leftists, but they're not courageous.
But Dennis, this is what I want to challenge you on, and this is what I struggle with. Again, so I sit there, I have a lot of friends on the left, friends on the right, friends in the middle, and friends who could give a shit about politics, okay? Mm-hmm. I got them all. And I sit down and I see these guys that are Democrats, and I say, this guy is very smart, okay? And then I look at this guy and I say, oh, this guy is very smart. And I look at this person's very smart. Right. So there's a lot of smart, good people on all spectrum, right? And then I dig a little deeper. And then here's what I figure out when I dig a little deeper. So I have a friend who's African American. And I say, growing up, who got a hold of you? Who was the person that influenced you the most? And then, he said, well, I read some of Solinsky, and I read some of, Karl Marx, and my professor was a big fan of, all these other guys, and Vidal Gore, and all these things I read. I said, okay, great, let me ask you a question. What if Thomas Sowell got a hold of you? Oh, Thomas Sowell, I would never follow Thomas Sowell. I said, but what if Thomas Sowell got a hold of you at a young age? Would you have been different? You didn't grow up with a father figure, so what if Thomas had a hold of you at 14? And by the way, this guy's got a PhD. He's a brilliant, he's a professor, principal, smart guy. And he sits there after a while, he says, Pat, honestly, I probably would have been on the other side. So the part I'm trying to get to with this battle that there is going on, right? The part I'm trying to get to with the battle that's going on is we have people that grow up and they say, I want to be anything than whatever my dad was. My dad was Ronald Reagan, but he wasn't around. He was always on the road. I'm Ronnie Reagan. I'm going to be a liberal, okay? Hey, my father was a Democrat, and I'm going to be complete opposite. My ex-husband was this. We broke it off. It didn't work out. I'm going to be the complete opposite. So how much of that, the part I'm trying to figure out with you is you said 50-50 was my environment, but you're saying no matter what, even if it wasn't that, you're still going to have the same belief system. How would that have happened? If I'm born in your family, the books I have here are the books, and your influence is going to be mainly on one side.
Right. But it's not because it's one side. If what you're saying is true, then it's pointless to try to influence people morally or politically or socially or economically. If they are what they are because of environment and genes, then that's the end. But I believe that humans have free will. I believe that a certain percentage of humanity hearing a good idea will then challenge themselves. That's why I know, look, we had 600 million views at PragerU last year. Vast numbers, and 65% of them are under 35 years of age.
Fascinating.
It's a big deal. The number of them who say, wow, I never heard that before, that made me think, is very large. There are people who will hear 2 and 2 is 4, but they are emotionally committed to 2 and 2 is 5. I can't change their mind.
But if you're saying that, then what your theory says that one day we can have 90% of the world be on the right.
That's correct. That is correct.
You really believe that?
Yes.
How?
Because I believe in the human ability to think rationally. However, I fully admit that the world composed today, where so much irrationality dominates. You said you had friends on the left who are very smart, and you said something else, very well educated. I think those were the two things. Right. But you didn't say the key word. The smart means nothing. Educated means nothing. Wise is everything. There's no wisdom on the left.
So define wise. Wise is what? Wise is life experience.
Wise is partially life experience. Okay. Wise is looking at life and making rational, wise conclusions. For example, it is wiser for a woman in her 20s to look for a husband than to just chase a career. That's wisdom. That's not economics. It's partially economics. Because if you care about human happiness, I have no issue. Woman wants a career, God bless her. I married a lawyer. If a woman wants a career, it's a non-issue to me. But from the point of view of wisdom, since good men don't grow on trees, good careers do. Because you work hard, you'll have a good career. That's the way it works. But to find a good man is easier at 25 than at 45. And I don't know this because I'm a woman. I know this from the thousands of women who have called my radio show in the course of 35 years of doing radio.
But Dennis, you say something like that. So I know Democrats that have been married for 45 years and Republicans that have not. So does that mean the Democrat is wiser than the Republican?
Yes, sometimes they live by value. I'm talking about what they advocate.
No.
I'm talking advocacy. You know what I tell all my liberal Jewish relatives?
What's that?
Preach what you practice.
No,
They live conservative lives and they preach liberal lives. So when you say the tragedy of black life is lack of fathers, they say, oh, racism, racism, racism. But they all give their kids fathers. The people give their kids fathers, but don't think it's necessary for black kids to have fathers. That's racism.
So here's what I'm not talking about. So I'm not talking about, so for instance, today we're having a conversation, okay? Paul, Mario, and I were having a conversation before we went with Curtis Stone. Curtis Stone is the celebrity chef. He was on Celebrity Apprentice. He's got all these big restaurants in Beverly Hills and LA. So we're at lunch. We're having a debate over gay and being straight, okay? And how does that come about? I'm not going to get into the details of where this conversation led to, but we're having a conversation over lunch. And I like to kind of process issues like this. So it finally got to a point where Paul made a comment, and then I said, this is where I no longer debate. Because if this is what you're going to agree on, I'm not debating anymore. We change the subject. I'm not talking about talking to people that they have to be right at all costs. Yeah, I can't do nothing about those guys, right? I can't sit there having a serious conversation because you have to be right. I'm talking about somebody that says, you know what, Dennis? So I'm in a car, I'm driving, I got two guys sitting behind me. This is when Barack Obama is about to pass Obamacare, okay? So the wife voted for Barack and a husband voted for Barack, and they both believe we need to have Obamacare. I'm not saying anything about, haven't even brought it up. I say, hey guys, I got a question for you. They said, what's that? I said, I got this family I'm dealing with, and this family makes $35,000 per year. And they say, oh, wow, that's great. And they're thinking about coming up with this additional thing for the family that's going to cost them roughly $20,000 a year. And they're going to go into debt into that. They don't have the money. But everybody in the family has agreed that they should, because maybe they should do it. What do you think about it? I asked the wife. She says, oh, that's a terrible idea. They should never do that. Why would you go into debt not having the money? And I said, oh, you know what? I agree with you. I said, then what do you think about it? I asked the husband. And he says, terrible idea. That's not how you handle your finances. I said, by the way, let me tell you how I'm breaking down the math. Our GDP is $3.5 trillion. And this Obamacare is going to cost $1 trillion to $2 trillion. Why the hell are we coming up with a program we don't have the money for while we're in debt $16 trillion at the time? Then they said, shit, this makes sense.
Okay, so you're making my point.
So no, but my
People
point,
who are prepared to hear
But I
reason
think-
can be influenced.
yeah. So for me, I also on the other side, I also believe the Socrates point of the moment you think you know everything, you don't know anything, because there's a part of it that I think it's healthy to have a little bit of doubt. Didn't you have a debate with Hitchens one time, and you asked him a very interesting question? You asked him, you said, hey, Chris, myself and Dinesh, we, even though we are strong in our belief, we sometimes doubt.
Right.
And you asked him a brilliant question. You said, do you ever doubt
Right.
that, your atheism, non-existence of God is wrong? And he said the answer that you knew he was going to say. He answered the answer that you knew he was going to say. He says, no, I try, but no, not at all. He says, now you can tell to the audience that there's a little bit of level of arrogance here versus us. We're not. We're doubting a little bit. And he does. I think the challenge why on the right, I had this conversation with Charlie Kirk as well. I said, I think the challenge with the right sometimes is the fact that there is a level of, I am right no matter what. That,
No.
And you may disagree with me.
I, Dennis, am not right no matter what. Certain ideas are right no matter what. I don't care whether I'm right. I care whether I know what is right. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
My ego is not attached to my opinions. Zero. I am prepared to change my mind in a nanosecond, given I was for minimum wage. I was. Then I saw the data.
What number?
Whatever it was. I don't remember. When I was for it, it was,
Oh, okay.
I don't
I
remember.
see. You're not
what
talking
it
about
was.
recently. Okay. Yeah.
I was for minimum wage when the New York Times was against it. The New York Times editorialized the right minimum wage is $0.00. But the New York Times has shifted from liberal to left. Now it would never agree with that. People should look that up. I wrote I and many others have written about when they advocated. They had an editorial: the right minimum wage, $0.00. More people are unemployed. You don't give an opening work for people who need work habits at a very early time in their life. Nobody lives on minimum wage the rest of their life. If they do, there's something wrong with their work ethic. They should rise. You should become a manager at a McDonald's after a certain number of years. You shouldn't be getting minimum wage. But I finally realized, oh my God, we're putting small businesses out of business because they work at such a small margin of profit. Who's going to hire all of these people? But the left doesn't care because they consider it a victory to have the government give more and more money to people. They think that it's a moral and beautiful thing to do. And I think except in the cases of where people literally cannot work, it is ruining their character and their life. So I changed my mind on it because of the evidence.
Are there a lot more things that can be changed with your mind today?
Yes, anything.
Okay.
You provide me better evidence, and I'll change my mind.
So-
I'm for capital punishment. If you convince me that we are executing innocent people,
Yep.
then we have to do a moratorium.
So fair enough. And by the way, one thing, about me, I was a registered Democrat. I voted Clinton, and I voted right, and then I went in the middle, and I'm independent, libertarian.
I voted
And
for Jimmy Carter.
You voted for Jimmy Carter,
Yes,
yes.
then I stopped being a
That's why I'm
Democrat.
in America. I mean, if there was no Jimmy Carter, I'd still be in Iran. I wouldn't be in America if there wasn't for Jimmy Carter. I'd probably still be in Iran, living there, doing something else with the Shah.
Yeah, but you would be doing well. It would be a much freer country.
to be in Iran, then
The Iran under the Shah
Of course it would
was
be a much-
infinitely morally superior.
No
Forget
doubt.
economically and socially
yeah,
and politically.
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. His son and I had a conversation about it in D.C. the day I was with Ted Cruz. So, okay, fair enough. So let's finalize this topic here. This is my processing, and I really want to know your answer. Like, honestly, I sincerely want to know your answer on this, and I'm not trying to get one answer or another side. You having met so many different people on both sides, Chris Matthews is not stupid. Okay, Rachel Maddow's not dumb. Elizabeth Warren is not dumb. Now, they may be a little bit sensationalism.
There are
to
very
the-
few dumb people.
That's the point. That
Dumb doesn't mean anything. Educated doesn't mean smart doesn't mean. The number of smart people who supported communism
enough, then
is in the millions.
But fair enough to go to the left, and if you talk about values and principles and all of that, there's a lot on the left.
There's no wisdom on the left. There are a lot
can't
of.
say that.
I
You-
can say that.
You seriously think there's no
I
wisdom on the
know
left?
it. I don't say it. I
How is
know
that-
it. I lived it. I went to Columbia. My professors were brilliant and had almost no wisdom. They taught me that men and women are basically the same. You can be brilliant and believe that, but you can't be wise and believe that. The difference between men and women is huge.
So you're saying the left is smart, the right is wise?
Yes.
You're really saying that?
Yes, that's exact. No, not the people, the ideas. That's correct. Wisdom is there are wise liberals too, but there is no wisdom on the left. The left is a nihilistic, destructive
Okay.
force in every society
Fair
it
enough.
has touched.
First of
It
all-
has ruined our universities. It has ruined our arts. It has ruined our high schools. Everything. It's ruining football.
I'm not debating that
Whatever the
part.
left touches, it ruins.
Okay, so let's do this. Just so we are clear. Why don't you define left and liberal?
Fine.
Let's do
I'll
that
give
because you said there's a
example
difference.
after example.
Please, what
Fine.
is the simplify?
They ha-
Simplify in a way where sixth grader can understand.
No,
it.
I do. By the way, I
Please.
believe I believe it's our obligation to make things as simple, not simplistic, as possible. Example: liberalism believes in that race is meaningless, that character is everything, and skin color is nothing. The left believes that character is much less significant than skin color. The left believes in segregation racially. Liberals believe in integration racially. A liberal is opposed to a black dorm. A liberal is opposed to a black graduation at Harvard. A leftist is for it. They have nothing in common. The only thing that the left and liberals have in common, they have two things: belief in big government and hatred of the right. That is the only thing that leftism and liberalism have in common.
Okay, so tell me who's a liberal and who's a left. Somebody that people know. Name.
Fine, I gave you Alan Dershowitz. He's a classic liberal. Okay, professor at Harvard Law School.
Who voted for Obama
Who
and probably
voted
would
for
vote for
Obama
Clinton.
and voted for Clinton.
Fair enough.
That is correct.
Who else would be a liberal?
Okay, there are many. My whole family, which people don't know, obviously, publicly, there are very few public liberals today. This is a tragedy. Publicly, the Democratic Party, which was once liberal, is now left. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, these are names that will not be known to most of your viewers. Senator from New York, major intellectual, Democrat. He was the man who alerted the country to the crisis of the absence of the black father. And what was he called by the left? A racist. But you could say it as a Democrat and still be elected senator from New York. Not today. A Democrat who said that the biggest problem in black life is not racism, it is absence of fathers, could not be elected dog catcher in New York.
And who would you say as a left? You'd
The
say
whole left,
Maddow, everybody else,
all of them.
Cooper, they're all left.
Yes.
So
that's right.
would you put, let me ask you, would you put progressive philosophies in the left, or could progressive be left and liberal?
Progressive is a larger term for both liberals and leftists, so I'm not using it.
Okay, fair enough. Well, then that kind of redefines when I use the word left on where your frustration comes with that, because left may be based
Ask a
on...
liberal, do you think it's a good thing, moral thing, a liberal thing to have a black dorm? Ask them that. If they say yes, then I say, then you are a leftist, because liberalism was opposed to racially based dormitories.
You always have strong views on things, and that's what...
I always have strong views on things I have strong views on. I know my lacunae, my lapse, and my gaps. So I just don't have. I don't talk about.
Fair
those.
enough. So Dennis,
on this, I have a strong view.
Okay,
yes.
so you said something. You said
race means nothing. Human beings are human beings. I'm a religious man. We are created in God's image. God is not white or black or yellow or red. God is not color. Therefore, if we're in the image of God, color means nothing.
I'm not. Okay, fair enough. So let's go back to it, though. Let's put Dennis Prager in a complete different side. We're not talking Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager was born with these views. Dennis Prager was born with the way you feel about doing better, all that stuff, and you have politically be in the same place except for what Reagan told you about limited government. The reason for all this stuff with limited government. Fair enough.
Right.
Let's put Prager on this
liberal.
side. Let's put Prager on this side. How about the guy that grew up a Democrat and shifts? How about the guy that grew up a Republican and shifts? How about the guy that grew up not caring about politics that shifts? How about the guy that grew up a pro-gun and then accidentally there was a gun in the house and somebody killed his 3-year-old daughter and he shifts and he says nobody should have a gun in the house and he becomes a anti-NRA, all that stuff. How about some of those things? So the point I'm trying to get to is the following. How do people, not Dennis Prager, how do people generally, because I think this is the issue, because if we don't address this issue, we don't know what audience to go to be able to help them process issues on how we form our political beliefs. So asking you, Dennis, from your experience, you've debated people, you debated Frank Pastore on Christianity Against Judaism, Chris Hitchens, you've gone to Israel, you've done it on the most wildest places, most incredible platforms, and you've debated every topic that has to do with political, pretty much. How do people form their political opinions?
On passion. When they do it on reason and morality, we'll win them over. I'm a lover of reason. Reason is not enough, but it's absolutely indispensable. We are living in a day of pure passion. On the guns issue, it's just passion. No more guns, no more guns. Well, what happened when the government said no more drugs? Did it increase or decrease the number of addicts and the number of killings by people for drugs? So the same people who want more laws with regard to guns want fewer laws with regard to drugs. Why will it work on guns but not on drugs? They don't think rationally. It's passion, because we all hate seeing kids killed.
Interesting. So passion, reason. Fair enough.
Passion, it is.
Okay, that's great.
right.
I mean, honestly, that I kind of wanted to hear your perspective on that. For me, I sometimes go through the fact that you have people that somebody had an influence in their lives early on. Maybe they didn't have a father figure, but a professor did. You have people that are tradition-based. I grew up traditionally black, so I vote Democrat. Most Armenians are Democrats. My father was in the military, so I'm a Republican. I am
You're
such
right.
and such.
I think most people
tradition.
do it out of habit.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy.
And then there are some people that are purely stubborn. You can't convince them.
That's
You can't
correct.
pass
I
anything
agree.
to them.
All right.
Yep.
But
Okay.
I'm telling you, I really believe that otherwise I wouldn't do all the work of my life. I'm trying to influence people through reason and morality. And it's very effective. But it's not effective on everybody. I admit that.
That's why when you said 90% will eventually be, how do we get 90%?
No. If they were governed by reason. But
People are emotional beings.
That's correct. I know. So you know what? All of life is a battle between the brain and the mind.
I got something for you to think about. I had a girl that came into my office, and we were one night. It was one of my new executives' girlfriend at the time. Okay, and she always wanted to debate politics with me. So she came into the office one day and she said, I think it's this. I think all you care about is capitalism and money and entrepreneurship and millionaires and greed and all this other stuff. Then I asked her a question. I'm curious to know what you're going to say. I don't even have this thought just came to my mind right now. I said, over the years, every time I debate politics with somebody, after I find out which way they lean politically, I ask them the following question. And it's interesting because I want to know if there's a linkage behind it. I said, when you were in high school, did you like math or did you like English or journalism or, art? And you have no idea how often when people say math, that's reason, they eventually end up believing in capitalism. When they say art and creativity, they go to passion, emotion, which is the left. How much you think that side on how we're wired tilts to?
Yeah, but
Okay.
everybody is wired to think emotionally. That's some more than others, but everybody is. As I said, life is a battle between the mind and the brain. The brain says, I want cheesecake. The mind says, you're already overweight, don't eat it. Most of the time, the brain wins. The brain is the animal.
Brain wins because it's right?
No, the brain wins because it's so powerful. The urge to have cheesecake is greater than the rational calculation that I'll never lose weight if I keep eating cheesecake.
Are you saying that because you want some cheesecake right now? Or?
No, I actually haven't had dessert in 6 months, and it's not easy, but it's easier after 6 months than it was after 2 months. But yes, I'm talking from experience. I'm talking from any experience, but it's true for anything. You know, the number. Why do they say that college is a rape culture? I don't believe that college is a rape culture, but so many women have sex that they later regret having had, even though they had it voluntarily. But what they did was they didn't use their mind. For most women, sex is more of a emotional issue, or can be more, than for men. Men can have sex and do have sex with just about anything, not to mention themselves, and they want the male is sexually phenomenally different from the female. But the fools who taught me and who taught now a whole generation in high school and college have told young women, you are the same as a man sexually. They can have sex without any commitment, so can you. So they bought this nonsense, so they have hookups, and the depression rate among young women is at college is extremely high.
I mean, Tinder doesn't help, though. The accessibility and availability today with
I
technology
am for freedom. If people want Tinder, they should have Tinder. It's none of my business. I'm only giving a prescription if you want to be a happier human being. If you want to be a happier human being and you're a female, then you should think a few times before having an immediate hookup.
Did you listen
This is not a moral message. This is a purely rational message.
Did we listen to our parents at 18, 19 years old? I mean, I don't know about you, but, you know, it was a phase that I went through. I don't know if you went through.
You're right, fine. People, yes, I went through. Yes, I agree with you, but women pay a bigger price for hookups than men do.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But you can't say that at a college. You say fair enough because you know it's true. You can't say all these truths at a college because they're, quote, politically incorrect, which means offensive to the left, which wants to believe that men and women are the same.
Okay, let's transition to the next topic. You know, atheism, okay? By the way, have you ever watched Chris Hitchens debate his brother? That whole
No.
Oh my gosh!
I debated Chris Hitchens, but I never saw him debate his brother.
First of all, his brother doesn't have a strong personality like him and the dynamic, witty side to kind of help. So it's not kind of fair.
Right.
It's like trying to play basketball against LeBron James. He jumps 40 inches and you jump 10. You just, even though you may be a better dribbler, he's going to kick your ass. And
right. I'm not a better dribbler, and I can't jump 10 inches. But go ahead.
That's right. So you know, what makes you believe, and I have my own beliefs on this, and I'm firm on it, but what makes you believe that the argument against atheists, I'm not even saying Christianity, Mormonism, Judaism, Muslim, Scientology, I'm not even going there. I'm just saying there is a God, there is no God. What's the simplest thing for you, for all these years that you debated, if you were to say 1, 2, 3, or even 1, what is the simplest thing for you to say? I know there is a God.
I don't know there is a God. I'm pretty certain, but I don't know. I know you're sitting there. I know this is a cigar because I can empirically prove it. I cannot empirically prove God, but I am one notch below empirical proof certain that there is a God who created the world because the design is so unique. The number of factors that had to come together to produce life, let alone intelligent life, is so beyond the probabilities in the short 13 billion years or whatever it is that the universe has existed, that it can only be explained rationally by a creator, by a designer, to which, by the way, current atheists know that that's true. So it's a very interesting thing they're doing. They are so aware about the improbability of life without a designer, without a creator, the improbability of intelligent life without a designer or creator. So now they have a new argument. This isn't the only universe. But there isn't a shred of evidence for any other universe existing, nor can we ever know it. That is, it's a complete, total leap of faith. There are other universes in which I'm interviewing you. It's an infinite number of universes, and everything that could happen happens. So in one universe, I'm a turtle, and in another universe, I'm a pebble, and another universe, I'm not, and so on. But that's nonsense. I asked Charles Krauthammer, who was he is brilliant and wise, and an agnostic, he's not an atheist. I asked him, what do you think of atheism? I had no idea what he'd say. He said, there are a lot of dumb ideas out there, but that's the dumbest. That's Charles Krauthammer.
One of the smartest guys out there.
Agnostic and secular.
Very interesting views he has. Even in the last election, he kind of got some heat, but he's got very interesting views. Okay, let's transition into capitalism, okay? So you got capitalism, you got socialism, you got communism, okay? Obviously, you got a bunch of other things in there that people want, Marxism, thisism, all these other isms that are out there. But let's just take the three. Capitalism, socialism, communism. Communism, we're not even going to debate, because let's just set aside communism out there on the other side. It doesn't have a good track record, okay? I think there's only a couple things from Karl Marx books that I read that I sit down and say, these 2 points, I can actually buy it that Karl Marx makes, fair enough. Everything else, I just can't buy into. Anything he's saying mathematically doesn't make sense to me. So question for you. You got capitalism, you got socialism. What's the difference? You know, if you were to simplify it, what is the difference between capitalism and socialism? And does America today, is it truly a capitalistic system that we have in America today?
We have a mixed economy. Well, every democracy is a mixed economy, where there's socialism and there's capitalism. But here is the most important question, since again, I think morally and rationally. I ask one question: what has lifted people out of poverty? Poverty is the human norm. There's been very little affluence in human history. There is a great deal of affluence today. By affluence, I mean able to have a roof over your head, pay your bills, have a car. I mean, that's affluent. To have a car and a place to live and an air conditioner, that's affluent, okay? In reality. Though everyone who has that has it because capitalism has lifted billions out of poverty. Socialism spends the money that capitalism creates.
Oh, so are you saying
Socialism never creates wealth. Only capitalism creates wealth. Socialism is a way of spending the money that is created by capitalism.
Okay, so at what percentage is it just capitalism? I don't think there's a nation that's 100% capitalism, right? Is it fair to say that?
Of course, because
Zero.
I said earlier,
Right,
there have
because
to be
it's a
some
mixture of both.
regulations.
So what is the number, in your opinion? I've done some research on what the number is.
I have a number for the Laffer curve. You know, at what point of
Yes.
taxation do revenues actually drop? I don't know what the number is of, because you can't make a number. This percent is capitalist, this percent is socialist. But the more private enterprise, the more free market, the more people are free. I'll give even medicine. This is not well known, and it should be. There is a branch of medicine that is not covered by insurance, so people have to pay cash. They're not insured. It has become one of the most lucrative areas of medicine, and the prices keep falling, and that is cosmetic surgery. The surgeons are making a lot of money, and the people are paying less, all because it's completely free. Insurance doesn't pay for a nose job. Insurance doesn't pay for a breast implant. This is all cosmetic.
Are you saying they should pay for breast implants?
No, not in the least. They shouldn't pay for almost anything. There should be insurance just the way there is in cars. Nobody is insured for a lube, an oil change. You are insured if you want to pay less for your insurance. You're only insured for a serious crash. That's what we should do for health insurance. You get cancer and you need chemotherapy, I need insurance. That's too expensive. Beyond that, it should be cash.
So let's go back to the question again. The question is, I'm going to ask you, just Dennis, let's not do the research, but I know David and Christina Romer from UC Berkeley did a research on at what percentage of taxes does the motivation to create more money go away, Okay, I was once
Oh,
sitting.
that's a different question.
But that's what I want to know.
Okay, no, you asked, I thought you were asking what percentage should be socialist, what percentage should be capitalist in a society.
Okay, so if you have
That's a different question. I didn't have an answer because we can't measure exactly what's socialist, what's capitalist. But that can be measured.
Do you have you from
I
speaking
don't
all
know
these other?
what is the answer, but I do believe that is more or less measurable. At what point people people's ambition to work is shattered by taxation.
So I mean, you saw California is number 1 right now in America.
That's correct.
New York's number 8.
That's
by the way. I
right.
was surprised New York was number 8. California is
I can tell
13.3.
you in my own life, given that I pay, that I am in a category, and my wife, who really knows economics, is present. What is the category of our tax rate now? Is it over 50 with state tax?
Probably between 50 and 55.
Okay, between 50 and 55. So I'll tell you how it's affected me. I do a lot of speaking, and I'm paid for my speeches. I give some for free because it's the right thing to do. But putting that aside, I raised my prices because of taxes. That's the only reason. I raised the fee because if I get X amount for a speech, so I have to travel across the country to give a speech, I have to do my radio show, so I'm gone for 3 days for one speech. I'm not going to go away for 3 days for half the amount. I will have to, and I have. I've raised my price because I am in such a high tax rate. So it's discouraged me from speaking. That is correct.
There you go.
And
so let me
right.
ask you this. You don't believe with 90% of the policies in California that you're living in.
Correct.
I mean, okay, fair
Right.
enough. So what point does it need to get to? And I'm asking
For
the
me to
same-
leave?
Yeah, what point does it need to get to for you to say, honey?
Right. I don't know the answer, but I can tell you why I'm staying, which is the logical question to ask. I'm staying because I love I have so many friends here, and Friends is the road to happiness. I've written a book on happiness. I do an hour a week of my radio on happiness. I'm a big believer that happiness is a good thing. Happy people do good for the world. So I have all my friends here. I have a community here. I have a religious community here. I love the weather, and I love my home, and I love the town that I live in. But it is true that at a certain point, it could get so onerous that I would have to leave.
So Mayor Villagrosa runs for office. He becomes the governor of the state of California.
Right.
He says we need to go to 74%. Would you still be here?
No.
Okay. Where would you move to? Have you thought about
Texas.
We would welcome you gladly.
Where would
by
you
the way.
want to move? Washington?
Florida?
I don't know. I don't like the weather in Texas.
Well, I don't like the weather anywhere except the West Coast. No. We're blessed.
You really
We're-
are,
we're
though.
totally
Aside
blessed.
from earthquake, this is like perfection.
No,
and by the
no,
way, right now it's cold.
No,
I
it's
don't remember
awesome.
LA being this cold when I was here
I
for
love it
25
though.
years.
I love that if we get down to 38 degrees, to me, this is like great. But this is the coldest it ever gets. And in the summer, no mosquitoes. I grew up in the East. I know what it's like. No humidity and no mosquitoes. I'll pay a penalty in taxes for no mosquitoes and no humidity. That's how I look at it. Yes.
So in order to move Dennis, we got to make sure the taxes in California goes above 70%
To move me, yeah.
to move you.
Yeah, that would no, not probably. That would do it.
So Mayor Villagrosa, if you're watching this, we would like to encourage you to raise the taxes and run for governor so we can move him to Texas. So it's a lot easier to do radio and interviews with him because it's going to be closer than LA.
But the Democrats don't care if the middle class leaves. They've kicked out the middle class of California. California is now basically the wealthy and the poor. The middle class
blame
has
that to
left
who?
on the left.
So let me ask you, is there a likelihood of a true capitalistic Republican governor winning in the state of California next 20 years?
Only if the state goes bankrupt and can't pay its firemen and its police and its teachers, and people understand why. It's because they have done deals with unions that have sucked the money out of the
So
state.
it's got to get to that point
That
for
would
them
be
to.
the only point. That's correct.
That's what it's got to get to.
Yes, but they'll demagogue it and just say, look, the rich are still not paying their fair share. That's what they'll keep saying.
So I had Mayor Masso, who was a mayor of Frisco, and I don't know how much you have data on Frisco and what happened to them, Frisco, Texas. In 1992, this is amazing, Dennis. They had 6,000 people living in Frisco in 1992, okay? Today, They have 172,000 people there. And it's not because they're better at sex than everybody else in America. They attracted a lot of people to their city. And I sat down and I broke it down with him. I said, listen, what did you do? He was a 3-term mayor. What did you do? And he attracted us to move to Texas. He drove us, and we sat with Governor Perry and Nolan Ryan. And these guys are professional recruiters, by the way. And it made sense because logistically, it was easier for me to fly to Florida and New York and LA, everywhere. 3 hours. DFW is a good airport, loves a good airport, simple place to be. But he broke down the math. He broke down the math on how it works out, where he was able to bring entrepreneurs and all these other guys to move to Frisco, and this is what they did, and all this other stuff. How much of that do you yourself work with and bring people to your audience to actually educate the voters to know that, hey, one of two things, either me needs to run for mayor and run for office and run for governor and have these policies being driven, or two, I need to pay a little bit more attention to who is my mayor, to who vote for my mayor, or who vote for my congressman or governor, so these things don't continue. How much do you get into brass tacks and the dollar specific amounts so we pay attention to those? And do you think that's even something that we ought to be talking about?
Well, of course it's important, but I chose my vehicle as I've often flirted with running for office. I was going to run for the U.S. Senate from California, and I chose not to. And ultimately, I based my choice on my temperament. I have zero interest in having power. I only have interest in having influence. So that's why I do my radio show and PragerU and my books.
But that's a statement.
It is a statement.
So why wouldn't a statement run for office?
Because, again, well, to run for office, I couldn't then do a daily radio show. I want to influence people so that they will elect the right people to office. That's the way I decided. I can only do X amount of things as one person. I could do more, I believe, with PragerU and books and lectures and my radio show, a national radio show heard by millions of people, than by being a U.S. Senator. I know so.
Yeah, but maybe not senator, maybe bigger than that.
Yeah,
maybe
only bigger than that. Big president.
So would you have any interest in that?
I would have interest in it.
So you would have interest in it one day to...
If somebody could appoint president rather than having to run, I would like to be appointed.
Okay, well then that's not going to happen. Though.
Correct. That's why I'm not running.
So you have no desire to run?
Correct.
Zero, not even governor?
No, I have a desire, but my mind has overwhelmed my brain. It's sort of like cheesecake.
So are you saying the chances of seeing you run is
minimal.
0 to none?
It's minimal.
Do you agree with that, and it's not going to happen?
I think it probably isn't. I would love to see it happen, but I don't think
Why wouldn't he do it, though? Well, I mean, you guys talk about it, I'm sure. I'm sure
What,
other
run for
people...
president?
Why wouldn't you make a run at it? And by the way, so here's...
Right.
And by the way, Dennis, this is what I think would happen if you did. Let's just say you made a run at it, okay? And you were only in the run for 6 months. And one day you said, I'm done, okay? I don't know. I think, you would bring so much more attention to some of the things to reason with.
I agree with you.
So even if it's not an 18-month run,
yes,
what if
we
you just
thought
do it for
about
6
that.
months?
We thought about
so
that.
Today, I just want everybody to know the reason of he and I meeting together was to strategize on Dennis Prager announcing on this show that he's going to be running for presidency. And we got him.
My wife would be very happy to hear that.
Would you really be, though?
Yes, she believes I should run.
7 years, right? Because 3 years he can't really do nothing about it. So 7 years, then you have to do math, age, diet, discipline, all those things, because you're going to be on the road nonstop. But
I am on the road nonstop.
nothing's going to change, though.
That's right. In that way, nothing would change.
So then there you have it. I think we just fixed it today.
I'm not sure.
When you go pray tonight,
You're not
maybe
the first persuasive person to try to persuade me.
I'm not a persuasive.
win. That way we don't
Yes, right.
Thank God. Because then he would be running 3 years and you would be in the limelight asking all the, Miss Prager, so what do you think about Dennis and what he's doing? You'd have to answer all those questions. Okay, so last few thoughts here to have some fun with, and then we'll wrap up and let you go back to what you were doing. Books. Obviously, I think you've read at least more than 5 books in your lifetime. And one of the things about you is You know, you wrote one book. What book is that, by the way?
Wow.
Yeah,
how did
I
you-
read that. That's his book.
Yes.
Yeah, I read that
Boy,
book.
he
So
really did, because to recognize it among
yeah,
a
I
thousand
recognize the
books,
cover. Yeah, I recognize the
Yeah,
cover. So
that's an important book. I explain leftism, Islamism, and Americanism.
So here's a question. I'm 21 years old. Okay, I'm watching this. Politically, I'm curious, but I don't agree with you yet. Okay, I'm curious. I think you know, you come across as somebody that, man, I don't know if I relate to you, Dennis. What books you think I ought to read that is going to help me reason things better? And what were some of the books that maybe influenced you the most?
Well, first of all, if you go to DennisPrager.com, that's different from PragerU.com, there actually is a list of the 10 books that have most influenced me. So it's easily found. And I'll mention some if you want. But
Please.
okay, so as corny as it sounds, and it's a tragedy that it sounds corny, far and away the Bible, and especially the first 5 books, which I'm writing my commentary on, called, which is known as the Torah. That is without question the greatest single influence in my life. I totally resonate to its values. It's brilliant. I'll give you, I mean, I gave the example of the necessity of a God to say, honor your parents. Otherwise, a lot of people wouldn't. But I'll give you another example. The biblical view is that the world, that the human being, outside of God, the human being is the most important thing in the world. More important than the environment, more important than animals, more important than nature. It's more, we are the center of the world in the biblical worldview. That is laughed at college. It's called the anthropocentric view of the world. They laugh at it. We are nothing. We are absolutely nothing. We are coincidental joinings of molecules, and we think we're important. We're no more important than another animal. People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals is opposed to killing a pig to use its heart valve to save a human being. Who are we to kill a pig to save a human? So that's an example of, whoa, I got a very important value from this book that is in conflict, as it is in so many arenas, with modern thinking. Okay. What other books? Well, a book that had a permanent impact on me was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, Frankl. This man went through the Holocaust. He was an Austrian psychoanalyst, a Jewish psychoanalyst who was in a Nazi death camp but survived, lost relatives, were murdered by the Nazis. And he explained what has become a very powerful thing in my life since high school. He says the greatest yearning of people, more than sex, so he's differing with Freud, more than sex is meaning. No, and he's the second I read it, I realized, of course, there are people who have little or no sex and have meaning and who are basically happy. But there are people with a ton of sex who have no meaning, who not one of whom is happy. Now, it's best to have sex and meaning, just for the record, for both.
I'd be curious to know how old Frankl was when he said meaning over sex, and how old Freud was. Freud could have been 22 when he said sex.
People who think.
I'm giving you a hard time.
No, I love a hard time. It's a non-issue. People who think beyond their own specific circumstance. Otherwise, we're all doomed. Then no one can think clearly, because that means only our circumstances determine how we think. But that's true for my dogs. It shouldn't be true for us.
So you're saying sex and meaning is possible?
Yes, I am saying that. But I'm
That's
saying, first of all,
validation right there for you.
But yes, there you are. If he needed to hear it, I'm glad he came. But what I am saying is that meaning, he taught me 2 things I learned from that book. Meaning is number 1, and number 2. By the way, the left gives people meaning. That it does. They're very passionate. But so what? A lot of bad things have given people meaning. The other thing he taught was there is only one freedom that can never be taken from us. And he learned this in the Nazi concentration camp. The Nazis could do whatever they wanted with a Jew in the concentration camp. Kill him, torture him, rape her, anything. But there was one thing he said they can't take from us: how we react. And that's a very powerful idea. That's my choice. How I react is my choice. Anyway, that's just the second book you asked me about.
Give me another
books.
one. Give me one more.
Okay, I think that people...
Economically, how about give me one on, I wanna study capitalism. Give me a book
Okay,
that...
anything by Tom Sowell. You mentioned Tom Sowell, but I really do advocate the book that you read of mine to explain the difference between left thinking, American thinking, and Islamist thinking, because those are the three competing ideologies in the world today. And that book will be an eye-opener. I worked very, very, very hard.
Oh, that was a great book. Yeah, it was. And by the way, the Sowell book. Thomas Sowell had a book where, was it Reasons, where it's like it was like
Basic Economics?
75 chapters. No, it's like everything he was making a point. It was 4 points, 5 points, 5 pages, 4 pages. What was that book's name by Thomas Sowell?
Well, anything he wrote is important.
So would you put him
By the
ahead
way,
of
he's
Friedman? As far as book goes?
I think that to read Friedman, that's a good question. They're both very accessible.
I mean, he
so
was
they're
a
tied.
student of Friedman, though. I
Yes.
mean, in a way.
Yeah, I guess in a way that's true. By the way, I want to make a point about Sowell, which a lot of your viewers won't know. He is black. And if Sowell were not a conservative, he would be the best known black thinker in America by far. But the media ignore him. He is a luminous mind, but they ignore him because he's not on the left.
He's an absolute genius.
That's right.
Have you seen him go at it with Francis Piven?
No, I didn't, but I pity anybody who debates him.
Oh my gosh! I
Right.
mean, that is a man that's got a combination of passion and reason together. I mean,
Right.
that's and he is as brilliant as they get when it comes to Thomas Sowell. Have you read any of Cleon Skousen books? Have you 5,000 Year Leap or Naked Communist? And Naked Communist was really interesting, by the way. This guy was a 15-year CIA agent, and he writes a book called 5,000 Year Leap, and he writes a book called The Naked Communist, 25 points that they want to slowly, because you can't go automatically from capitalism to communism. You have to gradually push it through, right? And kind of like the whole idea about putting a frog in a pot and boiling him, you got to gradually do it. He explains 25 points on how to do it. I thought it was a fascinating book,
Sounds
Naked
great.
Communist. Remind me to send a copy. We'll send a copy over to Dennis so you can take a look at it. So Dennis, this has been a pleasure. I really enjoyed
By
it.
the way, do you speak Farsi?
I do speak Farsi,
Then
yes.
let me tell you my one line in Farsi.
I want to hear it.
Berim pishe Ayatollah dars b'chunim.
Berim
Berim
bechishe.
pishe Ayatollah dars b'chunim.
So I
Tell
speak
everybody what I said.
Berim bechune ba'ayatollah.
Let's all go study with the Ayatollah.
Yeah, I was going to say, why is he saying that to me?
I decided, I have a very dark sense of humor. So I have so many Persian friends. 30 years ago, I asked one Persian friend, I said, I want one phrase in Farsi. She said, what? How are you? I said, no. If I'm kidnapped
simple.
by the Ayatollah, how are you was not going to save my life.
Wow, I see what you're
But
saying.
let's all go study with the Ayatollah. I have a chance.
6 weeks after Ayatollah died, we escaped Iran and we went to Germany, and I lived at a refugee camp there for 2 years. So Dennis, this has been a
Yes,
blast.
it has
Truly.
been.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming
Thank you
to my
so much.
home.
And if you haven't watched any of his content on PragerU, just go on YouTube, type in PragerU. It's insanity. You won't be able to watch one. I dare you. Go try watching one. You'll end up watching 6 or 7 of them back to back to back. Again, thank you, Dennis.
Thank you for that.
Yes, definitely.